the world-famous Macedonian nun Agnes Bojagiu, better known as Mother Teresa, became a symbol of mercy during her lifetime. After her death in 1997, she was made a saint. However, this did not happen immediately, because even during her lifetime the public had many questions about her activities. A girl named Agnes Bojagiu was born in 1910 in Skopje, although at the time the city was called Uskap because it was in Ottoman territory. Her parents, Kosovo Albanians, were Catholic. Because of this, they were pretty much alone in society. The family was very wealthy, so Agnes's mother spent some of her money on helping poor people. Her father had a more masculine occupation. In 1919 he was killed during an Albanian raid on a Serbian village. After graduating from an ordinary Serbian school, Agnes left the country. She wanted to devote her life to the service of God, and for this she traveled to Ireland to join the Irish Sisters of Loreto. At the age of 21, having completed her term of obedience, Agnes was tonsured and became Thérèse forever. She took her name from a 19th-century French saint, a Carmelite nun. She was famous for her philosophy of the little way, whereby the love that is God you express every day through small acts, rather than seeking a great feat that would imprint the monk or nun in history. After that, Teresa lived in Calcutta for 20 years doing small deeds. At the behest of the order and her own fervent desire, she taught girls in a Catholic girls' school for 20 years. It was only in the 46th year that she received official authorization to help the poor and destitute, and immediately afterwards she founded a monastic community. The community opened many hospitals to which all poor patients were admitted. Mother Teresa accepted money for the upkeep of the hospitals. Volunteers were invited to work in them, the number of which was enormous, and almost all patients left the hospital as Catholics, except those who were dying. Mother Teresa was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1979 for her impressive work and has been on the pages and screens of media outlets around the world ever since. Even during her lifetime, there were questions about Mother Teresa's activities, which increased dramatically after her death. Although Indira Gandhi had exempted Mother Teresa's organization from tax as a charity, when the 90s began to be counted, it turned out that one of India's largest organizations was not even in the top 200 charities on the list, and only about 7% seemed to be spent on the maintenance of hospitals and the sick. Hospitals housed both the contagious and the non-contagious, those with relatively mild diseases and those with fatal ones. What was surprising was not this, but that they were always divided into two large wards, one for men and one for women. Mother Teresa did not recognize any other separation than for the sake of chastity. In addition, while willingly accepting the help of volunteers, Teresa never allowed the help of professional doctors. The help from volunteers and nuns was highly questionable. The volunteers' duties were to clean the wards as best they could and to deliver food and water. The food could only be described as lean and not plentiful. The nuns who acted as nurses gave the sick only the simplest, cheapest medicines and did not recognize painkillers. Mother Teresa encouraged the sick, "When you suffer, you are like Jesus." The suffering of patients was also used to persuade them to be baptized. The combination of extremely uncomfortable conditions, when on the neighboring bed someone was constantly crying or dying, food was barely enough, and the disease caused torment, and the affectionate voices of the nuns did their job, almost everyone accepted Catholicism. In fact, this was Mother Teresa's main aim, to baptize as many Indians as possible. Perhaps she wanted to go down in history as one of the great Baptists, like St. Jadwiga. There were many questions about baptism as a process. The sick had little time to explain their faith. They just quickly put a wet cloth on their foreheads, performed the ceremony, and were told to pray that God would either help them get well or admit them to heaven. At the same time, Mother Teresa herself did not like suffering at all. The older she got, the sicker she got, and she was always treated in expensive private clinics, which partly, no doubt, explains where the donations went, but only partly. There she did not deny herself cleanliness and comfort, nor expensive medicines, nor painkillers, which would look absolutely normal if the same woman was not the owner of hundreds of dying homes. Mother Teresa herself called her sanctuary hospitals houses of the dying. The name was quite logical. More people died there than recovered. And not just because the seriously ill were brought there. Many of these patients had every chance of recovery. Sometimes the illnesses were quite simple, but the patients were either orphans or elderly lonely people, so they were sent to Teresa's asylums. But the lack of food, care, basic medicines, the difficult psychological atmosphere and especially the neighborhood with contagious patients left many patients with no chance. One boy with kidney disease, according to eyewitnesses, would have survived if he had been taken to a regular hospital, where he would have either received antibiotics in time or undergone a simple operation. But the nuns refused to call a taxi for him, because then the others would ask for the same. A normal hospital. In 1996, Robert Fox, editor of the Lancet Medical Journal, noted that the Foundation appeared to be engaged in a rambunctious imitation of healthcare rather than real help. It is unlikely that all the Catholic priests in Mother Teresa's entourage did not realize what was going on. It is known that when she was seriously ill, the Archbishop of Calcutta ordered an exorcism to be performed on her. Afterwards, when the deceased nun was being prepared for sainthood, he reasoned that the devil could have entered her heart at that moment. History, however, seems to know of no instances where priests have decided to perform the rite of exorcism preemptively. But whatever doubts the Archbishop had about Teresa, he kept them to himself forever. What's your take on Mother Teresa? Share in the comments.